From ABC News Headquarters in New York, I'm Frank Reynolds.
And I'm Howard K. Smith in Washington, and these are tonight's headlines. Rescue workers in Mississippi find many more bodies in the wreckage left by Hurricane Camille. The Thai government pledges that U.S. troops will not be asked to fight a Vietnam-style war in Thailand. The Republic of Ireland's Premier John Lynch warns the outlawed Irish Republican Army not to interfere in Northern Ireland. And in Wenceslas Square in Prague, police used tear gas to break up a demonstration marking the first anniversary of the Soviet invasion.
Also tonight, reports from Don Farmer with survivors of the hurricane in Pass Christian, Mississippi, where more than 50 persons died. Charles Murphy on another town on the Gulf Coast, almost obliterated, Buras, Louisiana. Don Baker on the Green Berets, now being held in connection with the death of a Vietnamese. Roger Peterson on a U.S. airbase in Thailand and our military investment there. Ray Maloney with an exclusive interview with Irish Prime Minister John Lynch, and George Watson on the tense situation in Czechoslovakia. Details on these and other stories in a moment.
The ABC Evening News with Frank Reynolds and Howard K. Smith is brought to you tonight by Metropolitan Life, the company that protects 1 out of every 5 people in the United States and Canada.
This is Walt Corey, one of 30,000 local metropolitan agents. Wherever he goes, he's backed by an army of experts. Highly trained specialists like these, an outstanding lawyer, a distinguished physician, real estate specialist, a PhD economist, tax advisor, an eminent actuary, investment specialist, computer expert. These are the professionals who help your metropolitan man plan your life insurance more professionally. Though you never really see them, they're a big part of the metropolitan background behind your agent's call. Remember that the next time he calls on you.
One resident of Pass Christian, Mississippi said today, "It's so depressing you just don't feel like going on." Nobody could blame the survivors of Hurricane Camille for feeling that way, but of course rescue and reconstruction efforts are going on, and as the work proceeds, the full extent of the hurricane's destruction becomes more apparent. The death count now stands at more than 140. It is expected to go even higher as more debris is cleared away and more bodies are found. For a late report from the scene, here is ABC's Don Farmer.
Some of the roads here on the Gulf Coast are passable now. Rescue and recovery efforts are going on night and day. The scattered remains of several cities are being examined. Some of the luckier ones trapped by the hurricane were reached in time to save their lives. Only now is it becoming clear that many people did not leave before the hurricane struck. Rescue workers thought this woman was dead when they reached her pinned under the debris, but she cried out in pain and was saved. And there were others found seriously injured but alive. At this point, we do not know how many persons were rescued from the rubble. Those who did not survive also were being found, but it is a slow, sickening task, far from completed. Here in Pass Christian, Mississippi, Mr. and Mrs. Peter Stegenga are looking for 3 of their lost relatives. There were 6 members of the family in this house the night of the hurricane. Now, Mr. Stegenga's mother, father, and sister are missing, and he feels that perhaps they are buried somewhere beneath this rubble. The Stegenga house was located behind the Richelieu apartment building. 23 bodies were found there, but the Stegengas are still searching for their relatives.
Oh, Mike, I don't think they was under there. They're not under there. Man, is this my daddy's boot? That's just you, ain't it, Lana?
Mr. and Mrs. Stegenga are penniless now and homeless, but they are concerned only with the search. A lot of places you haven't looked yet.
They said they was going to look, but I don't know. I don't know how to find them. I don't know where to look.
You must, well...
Because I'd be a year digging in there by myself to try to find them. But for us up to right now, we don't know. We haven't seen them. I haven't seen my mother. The last word my sister said, she said, we're all going to drown, and that's it. and she left. And I see my sister.
This town of Pass Christian is truly in shock. There is an overwhelming atmosphere of death here. The living move slowly, searching for the dead. But the survivors have problems. Many are hurt, and disease is a threat. Now those who left before the storm are returning. They look around and do not believe what they see. They are walking into a disaster which is not yet over. More bodies will be recovered. More losses will be discovered. This town once was old and quaint. Now it is a shambles. The bayou area of Louisiana also is suffering. There are problems there as high water. ABC's Charles Murphy reports.
While the Mississippi coast was drying out, parts of Plaquemine Parish along the Mississippi River below New Orleans remained underwater. About 3 feet of water still covers the town of Buras. The water is trapped between 2 levees, and it may be another day before it drains out completely. Most of the residents scurried to higher ground before Camille hit Buras, and as a result, only 1 death has been reported from the area. The town is still isolated, and only a few residents have gotten back to their flooded homes and businesses. This parish was badly damaged 4 years ago in Hurricane Betsy, and since Betsy hit these lowlands, the population has diminished. A woman whose family rode out the storm in an oyster boat compared this storm to Betsy. She talked with newsman Bob Krieger.
Betsy wasn't as bad as Camille because Betsy, she took some of the people's things and a good majority of the houses, but never like this. Because, for instance, my house, it was fine through Betsy, but Camille, she just destroyed everything.
Could you tell us what it was like out here when Camille hit?
I don't know how to say it, but it was rough. It really was rough. We were in the boat, and we were in the cabin of the boat. The boat didn't shake too much. Of course, the winds were very high. It was very high. To my way of thinking, it was higher than Betsy. But
Hurricane Betsy could not drive the citizens of Lower Plaquemine from their homes. Camille, though even stronger, may not be able to either. Some have pledged never to come back to these lowlands, but most will return and rebuild. Charles Murphy, ABC News, New Orleans.
The death toll from Hurricane Camille now stands at more than 160. Hurricane Debbie is now about 600 miles northeast of Puerto Rico. There has been no apparent change in her size or strength, despite yesterday's chemical bombardment. However, scientists say it may be months before it can be determined whether the attempt to tame the hurricane by reducing its heat was successful. Debbie is not now considered a threat to any land mass. Perhaps the most important weapon against hurricanes is an early warning of their existence. And in the space age, the first alarm is often sounded by a satellite. ABC's Sam Donaldson reports now from the National Environmental Satellite Center in Suitland, Maryland.
This man is looking at a picture of Hurricane Debbie, 1,200 miles away in the Atlantic. As the picture is being taken by a weather satellite, it can be transmitted simultaneously to this facsimile machine in Suitland, Maryland. Mr. Mace, what is the principal information you're getting from that picture?
Well, we're getting several bits of information. First, the location of this Hurricane Debbie, the size of the storm, the general appearance of the formation of the clouds around it.
What do you do with that information?
Well, we do several things. The main thing is, I suppose, we estimate from studies which we have made over the past few years, we can estimate the maximum winds associated with storms such as this.
By using this automatic satellite readout system, the more the guesses on Debbie's size and location can be eliminated. And the fewer guesses you have on a dangerous storm like this, the better and earlier the warning to populated areas. Sam Donaldson, ABC News, Suitland, Maryland.
Howard and I will be back with more news in a moment.
Did you know that Colgate toothpaste with MFP fluoride actually makes tooth enamel stronger so children can have less cavities? Well, it does. Only Colgate has MFP fluoride. This toothpaste actually makes tooth enamel stronger. Now, children should have less cavities, so get some. Colgate with MFP fluoride. They'll love it because it tastes good, too.
Thank you, Peggy Fleming, for showing us how today's rich and thicker halo shampoos luscious body and manageability into your hair.
I love what Halo does for my hair. It makes it so easy to control.
Peggy knows new Halo is rich and thick. In fact, so rich and thick, it almost doesn't need a bottle.
Get somebody with Halo. Halo's got body to give.
In the last week of the late lamented lull in Vietnam, 96 Americans were killed, the lowest figure of the year. In the week since the lull ended, it is unofficially estimated that 300 Americans have been killed. We'll get the official figures on Thursday. Meanwhile, fighting goes on up and down the country. One big battle south of Da Nang has gone into its second day. Heavy enemy concentrations have been seen in the central highlands and have been subjected to the heaviest plastering by B-52 bombers in months. The Army seems to have got itself into a fix by its mysterious arrest of 8 Green Berets in Vietnam, reportedly, but not certainly, for murder. Many members of Congress have complained of their treatment. The latest was Senator Edward M. Kennedy. To prove the men are in good shape, reporters were allowed to see but not talk to them today. ABC's Don Baker reports from the Long Binh Stockade.
Air-conditioned rooms, television sets, and refrigerators. A vast improvement over the Long Binh Stockade. Those 8 Green Berets have been placed under what the Army calls installation parole. They're not allowed to talk to anyone except their guards, their attorneys, or any members of their families if their families show up. While the defendants wait in relative comfort, the Army's still trying to get enough evidence to sustain murder charges. So far, there isn't even a victim. It begins to look here as though the U.S. Army would like to ship these men anywhere and forget the whole case, but it's too late for that. Colonel Robert Rowe, the ex-commander of 5th Special Forces, probably wouldn't let the case drop anyway.
Colonel Rowe is confined with the other 7 at his insistence. Apparently, Colonel Rowe would not have been charged in the case, but he contended that as commanding officer of 5th Special Forces, he was responsible for everything that took place within his command. Actually, the buck stops a lot higher than that Colonel Rowe placed his career and his reputation on the line.
An investigation to decide whether the men will be court-martialed resumes tomorrow. 2 CIA agents will appear. Another Defense Department controversy involves an alleged secret agreement we have to defend Thailand. Worried senators have been invited to the Pentagon to see the documents. 2 of them, Senators Symington and Stennis, have accepted but have said nothing about what they learned. For the background of what we have agreed, here is ABC's diplomatic correspondent, John Scally.
The senators who examined the document must have learned that the Pentagon was telling the truth when it said there is a clause that protects the United States against being trapped automatically in a war in Thailand. This key paragraph, however, was put into the agreement at the insistence of the State Department and not the Pentagon. Specifically, it was the idea of the man who was then American ambassador in Thailand, Graham Martin. In 1964, when the agreement was written, the Thais were afraid that communist forces in neighboring Laos would spill across the Mekong River into Thailand. The American military, which was then building 6 air bases in Thailand, was anxious to reassure the Thais, so it agreed to write an advance plan for defending Thailand with American troops if this was decided on as the proper response to any invasion. However, Ambassador Martin insisted there be an escape clause. This specifically says the plan will not become operative until the President of the United States approves. So today, the Pentagon can point to this clause to placate congressional critics, but it's mainly because an American ambassador was wise enough to realize that conditions might change. This is John Scally, ABC News, Washington.
In Bangkok today, Thailand's Foreign Minister Tanat Koman told reporters he had assured President Nixon, quote, "Thailand is not going to be another Vietnam. We will not ask Americans to fight in an insurgent war." Whatever our paper commitment to Thailand, our physical commitment there remains huge. ABC's Roger Peterson reports from Utapao, Thailand.
Utapao is just one of 7 air bases used by the United States here in Thailand. The massive B-52 operations from Utapao, plus the size of the base itself, are just small indicators of the staggering American investment in Thailand. Utapao was built by knocking down a couple of mountains and filling in what was a swamp. From here, the Air Force flies well over half the B-52 missions in Vietnam and all of the Air Force refueling missions in Southeast Asia. A few miles from Utapao, American money has built the port of Sadahip. 80 to 100,000 tons of military cargo comes through the port each month, with most of that tonnage in the form of bombs or ammunition. That's more cargo than handled by any Great Lakes port except Chicago. On the military side alone, discounting civilian aid projects, American investments here in Thailand could be conservatively estimated at $1.5 billion in the past 5 years. Last year alone, military spending totaled $220 million. While officials talk about leaving and cutting back commitments to Asia, the military pushes quietly to keep strategic bases such as Utapao. Roger Peterson, ABC News, Utapao Air Base, Thailand.
Frank and I will be back in a moment.
Herb, I had 10 books of S&H green stamps in the kitchen drawer. Have you seen them? Where are they, Herb?
There.
Barbells. I was going to get an 8-speed blender with those stamps.
Now, don't begrudge me, Alma. You've already gotten plenty of things with S&H green stamps. You got that wall clock. You got that reading lamp. You got all that fireplace equipment.
Yes, but barbells? Come on, Herb.
You'll see. When I'm flat and hard, you're going to say thank you, S&H green stamps, for making my husband a Mr. America.
Well, since you got those barbells, let's see you lift them.
Sure. Oh, Alma, the back. The back is out, the whole back.
Thank you, S&H green stamps, for making my husband a Mr. America.
S&H green stamps. The more you lick 'em, the more you like 'em.
Carnation Instant Breakfast, mixed with milk, gives you a nourishing breakfast in a hurry. If you don't have time for a poached egg on toast, 2 strips of bacon, a glass of orange juice, tear into Carnation Instant Breakfast. It has the same amount of protein, vitamins, minerals, and food energy. In a hurry, tear into a nourishing breakfast. Carnation Instant Breakfast. A fine day to be snug inside. And a fine time to discover the wonderfully smooth, rich, and mellow flavor of Coffee with Coffee Mate, the non-dairy coffee creaming discovery from Carnation. Coffee Mate needs no refrigeration. Only 11 calories in a level teaspoon. Try Coffee Mate yourself. It makes coffee taste smoother, richer, mellower.
Last night, the Irish Republican Army, which is outlawed on both sides of the Irish border, announced it has sent fully equipped units to Northern Ireland and threatened to attack British troops now keeping the peace there. Today, the government in Dublin strongly denounced the IRA and said it has no right to speak for the Irish people. The immediate problem in Ulster is basically a question of civil rights for the Catholic minority. But as far as the government of Ireland is concerned, the overall problem is a much bigger one and can be solved only by the unification of North and South. ABC's Ray Maloney in Dublin has obtained an exclusive interview with Ireland's Prime Minister, Jack Lynch. Maloney put this question to him.
Sir, can you visualize any circumstance in which you might unilaterally order Irish troops into Northern Ireland?
I want to make this perfectly clear. As I said already, our whole policy and our whole campaign has been and will continue to be a peaceful solution of this 50-year-old problem. The bringing of troops to the south of the border in County Donegal was purely for the purpose of establishing as quickly as we could field ambulance units. We had reports of people being gravely injured on the night of the 12th of August as a result of their district, their neighbourhood being invaded by the Royal Ulster Constabulary. They had done it before, they had terrorized these people before. These people, poor people, people without any weapons to defend themselves. But it was to facilitate these people that we moved these troops, these ambulance units, to near the border, the fact that they have been used extensively since, not only for treatment of patients, but the troops have assisted refugees to come to the refugee camps that we have set up in many parts of our country.
Sir, I don't mean to pin you on this question. Are you saying that under no circumstances will the Irish Republic employ military force to impose a unilateral solution on Northern Ireland?
I want to say that I can see no future in a military solution of this problem. We have been trying and will continue to try to solve this problem by peaceful means, as I said, by generating goodwill amongst the people on both sides of our border. And we look forward ultimately to that day when the border will have disappeared. And I might say that when this will have happened, the last remaining difference between ourselves and Great Britain will have disappeared. They'll have very, very good neighbors in us when that border will have disappeared.
In Prague's Wenceslas Square today, riot police and army units broke up a mass demonstration against the 1968 Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia. Some 10,000 citizens had gathered near the statue of King Wenceslas, their symbol of resistance. Police charged the crowd and then used tear gas to clear the area. ABC's George Watson has just spent 3 days in Prague, but was not permitted to film inside the Czech capital. He reports from Vienna on the current mood of the Czech people.
Tension is rising in Prague as the anniversary of the invasion approaches, and reports from across the Danube in Czechoslovakia say anything could happen. Czech resistance leaders have called only for passive demonstrations. People are supposed to boycott public transportation, stay away from theaters and restaurants, and stop working for 5 minutes at the stroke of noon. Czech soldiers with submachine guns are a common sight today in the streets of Prague. And if they aren't enough, 100,000 Soviet troops are standing by. At the moment, the Soviets are kept discreetly out of sight. Last Sunday in Prague, I counted only 6 Russians in uniform, including 1 overstuffed general and a forlorn-looking private. The Czechs have a reputation for realism in the good soldier Schweik tradition of going along to get along. Common sense tells them that it's suicidal to oppose their government backed up by the Soviet army. But Czechoslovakia today is angry and restless, filled with hatred and fear of the Russians, and that places a severe strain on common sense. This is George Watson, ABC News, Vienna.
Howard and I will have more news in a moment.
In a crowd, all kids seem pretty much alike. But if they're yours, you recognize the difference. It's something like that with life insurance. Until you're ready for a policy of your own, most companies seem about alike. But are they? Did you know you could clothe every child in primary school for a year with the money Metropolitan pays in annual benefits? Did you know there's a Metropolitan policy that insures each new child at no extra cost? Did you know 2/3 of the money Metropolitan pays out goes to living policyholders? Maybe the life insurance company you choose does make a difference. Maybe it's time you had a Metropolitan Family Security Checkup.
Five people stabbed and shot to death at her Los Angeles home 10 days ago. The killers have still not been found. Today, Miss Tate's husband, film director Roman Polanski, called a news conference against the advice of his lawyers to talk about his murdered wife.
Sharon not only didn't use drugs, she didn't touch alcohol, she didn't smoke cigarettes. She was vulnerable. She couldn't refuse any friendship. She had innumerable friends, and I had them too. There was a lot of talk about parties going in our house, which are true. There was constant party. There wasn't an evening without few friends. Even when I was working hard, even if she was working hard, there was always somebody coming in the evening. There was always Sharon. Waiting. I'm sorry, I must stop it for a moment.
Frank and I will be back with more news in a moment.
Introducing some of the stars on ABC's bright new season. The bride, the groom, and their 6 lovely children.
How would you girls like to come along with us?
On your honeymoon? What should I take? A girl, dummy.
The Brady Bunch.
Mr. Deeds, your uncle left you over $50 million.
Go to town with Mr. Deeds. Meet Jimmy Durante and the Lennon sisters. They'll introduce you to some very entertaining people.
Meet us in September. Think how much fun it would be on ABC.
1 year ago this week, the Russians reminded the world that when they consider their vital interests to be threatened, they disdain a decent respect for the opinion of mankind. But now, a year after their invasion of Czechoslovakia, they could be having second thoughts. Howard has a comment. Howard?
Take the dread that Americans have felt on the verge of recent long, hot summers and multiply it by about 10,000, and that may approach the worry that is apparent in Russia about Czechoslovakia this week. Russia has physical force in excess to put down anything the Czechs do. What is in contest is moral force. It may sound strange, but the Russians have had a great deal of moral force. For half a century, they have embodied the alternative to capitalism, and around it, unhappy peoples have rallied and become fanatical in support of it. Now, even the most obtuse communists have noted that Russia's primary conflict is no longer with the quiescent capitalists. It is with the communists. The invasion of communist Czechoslovakia, hints of the same to communist Romania, flaming threats of the same to communist China. Even laggard Marxist theorists have noted that imperialism, Lenin's last stage of capitalism, has been abandoned by the West Europeans. Along only with Portugal, Russia is the last white European empire ruling over subject peoples, including Asians, with fist and gun. Russia's invasion of Czechoslovakia a year ago knocked a gaping hole in her credit account with the world's romantic radicals. A very few Czechs shedding a little blood could now drain it dry, could complete the transition of Russia's image in the eyes of those who were faithful to her from being the champion against capitalist oppression to being the world's foremost oppressor. Frank?
Thank you, Howard. That's tonight's news and comment. I'm Frank Reynolds. Good night.